everybody. Welcome into our Dog Nation post-game show presented by the UGA bookstore. I'm Brandon Adams here at the UGA bookstore. Happy to be back in Athens again for a game. And got Terrence Edwards, of course, checking in as always through the magic of video. And, you know, Terrence, there's never a dull moment around Georgia football. The entire season, the entire storyline has been the lack of quarterback play, the fact that in Georgia's 2 losses this season, Georgia's struggles at the quarterback position figured heavily in the outcome there. Not to say that Stetson Bennett didn't have, some good moments. He had a couple of good moments as a Georgia quarterback, but for the most part, the play left something to be desired. And here we are late in the season, seemingly with, a series of games kind of in some respects playing out the string. And lo and behold, Georgia got better quarterback play tonight from JT Daniels inside Sanford Stadium than it's probably gotten in years and years and years. It was a wild game. There's so much to talk about for the good and the bad. Obviously, there's a little bit of both in the game here for Georgia, but you got to start with what JT Daniels does, going over 400 yards passing, the first Georgia quarterback to do that since Aaron Murray in 2013 in the courageous game that he played and trying to battle him what ultimately ended up being the prayer Jordan Hare. This is just insane to think that JT Daniels stepped off the bench tonight and just lit the entire stadium on fire, delivering the ball to a number of receivers in a big way. Terrence, you're obviously been on the receiving end of a lot of touchdowns in your college career. What did you think of what we saw tonight?
I thought he played well. I thought he was a little shaky at first. I thought he was trying to really be perfect at the beginning of the game, but he settled in. He settled in nicely and went out and threw for 400 yards. And I don't care who you were playing against. It could be broken down Mississippi State or against Tennessee Tech. 400 yards is 400 yards, and we needed all of those 400 yards tonight to get this victory.
Yeah, listen, I'm like you. At the beginning of the game, it's not like every throw was perfect. There were a couple throws that were far from perfect, but I put this in our forum, and, I kind of just noticed this, that the ball was getting out of his hand with so much zip. It was just, and I'm not a former player. I'm not a coach. That's why you're here. You're the expert. I'm just a blowhard that, speaks into a microphone for a living. But even I'm watching this game, and you see the way the ball leaps out of his hand. You see the way the ball, gets out of the hand. It's just obvious visually, even to the casual fan, to the non-trained eye. It's just obvious that Georgia's dealing in this game with a different caliber of quarterback, not just this season. I think it's been a while since Georgia's gotten the kinds of throws, the feeling that the ball had while it was in the air tonight. This was just a unique performance for Georgia from a quarterback standpoint in comparison to most of what has happened thus far during the Kirby Smart era.
Yes, you definitely could tell that the arm talent is just different from the other two. So he played well. The couple deep balls early was a couple underthrown. The one for George Pickens that got a PI was underthrown. That would have been a touchdown. But I think he settled in nicely, went out and threw some great balls. The one to Jermaine Burton for the touchdown was a ball that he didn't have to adjust very much, and it was on the money. So you got to give credit where credit is due. JT played well tonight.
And obviously, I want to talk a lot about the receiving play, Jermaine Burton in particular, and we'll get into that here coming up in a moment. But Terrence, in addition to the great success that Burton's able to have in this game tonight, the fact that Daniels also gets so many other receivers involved. George Pickens had not been as big a factor in the offense as he should have been for a lot this season. And yet, whether it was a planned thing or it just worked out that way in the early going, Georgia's feeding number one over and over and over again. Getting him involved. We saw D-Rob get multiple catches late. Karis Jackson, we'll talk more about him later on too, kind of gets what turns out to be the game-winning touchdown. The way that Georgia was able to get multiple receivers involved in kind of the big play plan tonight. That was the other thing that was really fun about Daniels, was the way that he seemed to really distribute valuable, chunk play type targets to multiple Georgia receivers. It was just a level of play that Georgia's just not quite used to getting.
I'm going to go a different direction than you, Brad. The biggest play for me in this game, of course, the touchdowns were big. Jermaine Burton's touchdown and his plays was big. But one play there late in the fourth quarter where Trey McKinnon only had one catch for 5 yards. But the thing that I saw in that play was JT Daniels saw the double-A gap blitz was coming. It's going to be a zero blitz. He checked out to whatever play they was had and got a speed out from the slot. that's letting you know he's in control of this offense. He was engaged. He understood what's going on. He got Georgia in the right play. And it might not go for a much, but it's one play, one catch for 5 yards. But that was a really big play that lets me know he understands what's going on offensively.
I think that's really well said, Terrence. That's terrific evaluation. It's our Dog Nation post-game show. We're brought to you by the UGA bookstore. That's where I am right now. So if you're still in Athens, if you're coming out of Sanford Stadium, they're still open. Do some shopping. Get ready for the holiday season that's on its way. Also, hop up here to the second floor and see me if you are here. We'll be here tonight doing the show. I'd love to say hello to you. And as I said before, downstairs, all the great famous apparel makers that make the great UGA gear, Vineyard Vines, Southern Tides, Tommy Bahama, Peter Millar. That's all right down there on the first floor. The Nike coaches gear, all the great stuff. You can get that tonight from the UGA bookstore. It's down there. And by the way, it was great to be here earlier today. Great autograph signings taking place. Another big one coming up as we head towards December for the final home game of the year. It's the Vanderbilt Commodores. Stay tuned for a lot of that. The UGA bookstore is just famous for making those pregame engagements really fun. It was great today to see David Green and, of course, the legendary former coach Vince Dooley on hand for that. Really good stuff all the way around. All right, so we'll get into the defense. We'll talk more about what was almost a record-setting day for freshman wide receiver Jermaine Burton. There's just a lot to cover from today's game, but let me go open-ended here with some comments. Let folks say whatever they want to say about what was a very, very wild game. Hugh Nash says, I honestly believe we tinkered too much with our defense for this offense, and our players were not comfortable and confused. That could be the case. I mean, obviously, Terrence, when you look at some of the defensive breakdowns Georgia had today, Kirby Smart had talked a lot about the need to be very disciplined against the Mississippi State offense. I think the problem for a lot of Georgia fans is we just hadn't seen Mississippi State really move the ball on anybody since week one. So as we take comments for the positive about JT Daniels, there's going to be some criticism to be given out for the Georgia defense too, because this was more success than we'd seen Mississippi State have offensively. And really, you have to go back to the very beginning of the season to see them moving the football really on anybody.
Right. So let's go back to the LSU game early in the first game of the year. LSU's just gonna gun hole playing man coverage against them. So they do a lot of crossing routes, a lot of mesh combinations where you have two receivers coming across the opposite side trying to pick for each other. And LSU was not going to get out of their man coverage. So after that game, a lot of people was rushing 3, dropping 8. And what we did tonight was we rushed 3, dropped 8, but our drops were so deep, we're allowing the check downs at 8 yards. And I was saying to Michael earlier, if we get 2 catches, that's the first down. At 8 yards, that's the first down. So they just moved the chain. My problem was I don't mind that defense, but once we got into a 4-man front, we got pressure on them when we needed to. So I just thought we could have switched more out of the 3-man front and could have went to the 4-man front a little bit more in this game.
I think that's a very interesting point. Charles Kaiser, though, on Facebook does remind us that the defense only gives up the 7 points in the second half. So as Terrence kind of mentioned, there was some buckling down. There was some, defense kind of found its legs a little bit as you head towards the second half. And, Terrence, one of the things I'll give credit for here is for Georgia defense that maybe some people have asked some questions with Jordan Davis not playing, with Richard LeCount not playing. We've seen opt-outs around the rest of the SEC. How much focus, how much intensity would Georgia still have? How much do they still want to be here? This wasn't a perfect night for the Georgia defense, and we're going to call it out and call it like it is. But there's at least something to be said for when challenged early. This defense was ready to meet that challenge in the second half. They were ready to absolutely, remain competitive here throughout the entirety of the game. This isn't a Georgia defense that sleptwalked through this game. They were ready to come out and get a little bit of revenge in the second half after probably giving up more in the first half than they had wanted to.
I think so. I think that once they went into it and saw how deep the drops were on our zone drops, that we was dropping too deep and we wasn't able to just make the tackle on the check down. So once they catch it, we're already 3 or 4 yards away. So if this just turn up, it's a first down. So I think they didn't drop as much in the second half as they did in the first half. We got a little bit more 4-man front in the second half, and we blitzed a little bit more in the second half. So the first half, we just played very vanilla, in my opinion, 3-man front, dropping 8, and our drops were just totally too deep.
Matt Talley brings up an interesting point. Obviously, we're celebrating tonight what was a great day for the Georgia passing game. But Matt says, you have the quarterback play show up, and actually it's Matt Rugavina that said this, not Matt Talley. But you have the quarterback play show up in a big way, and then the running game seemed to disappear a little bit. I know that Your former teammate David Pollock also tweeted that tonight during the game. And Terrence, I guess my explanation for this is that, man, there were a lot of moments in this game where Mississippi State was really crowding that line of scrimmage, especially on first down, really daring Georgia not to run the ball there in that situation. The Georgia, passing attack made them pay. But this is, I think, the way it's just going to have to be, that, in these times, we're in now, people kind of know what Georgia has been. They've been a team about running the football. I think opposing defenses are going to throw those extra bodies at that. As Buck Bellew, the former Georgia quarterback, said on Twitter tonight a couple times, you can't block 7 with 5.
Right.
That's just leaving too many open bodies to potentially stop your running game, that you got to throw the ball in those situations. And so it ends up being a huge imbalance where Georgia does throw for more than 400 yards, really rushed for very little tonight. But that was, to me, an example of kind of what the defense had dictated. So in this particular case, I'm not too panicked about the absence of the running game, given the way in which Mississippi State chose to play Georgia tonight, which is the way that a lot of teams are going to choose to play UGA.
Right. Trying to block seven guys with 5 is never going to be a good choice, the way to block. But my only concerns of the run game tonight, we kept trying to run inside zone or inside power, and we never tried to attack the edge. If you could see, they blitzed AA linebackers the whole night. That means both linebackers going into the A gap. So we tried to run up inside. So I didn't understand why we didn't try to get on the edge like we did in the second half, late in the fourth quarter. And we had some successful runs, but we just tried to pound it in the middle, trying to block 5, trying to block 7 with 5.
Yeah, I think that's an interesting point. Steve Highland also brings this up in our Facebook comment section, and I guess we need to get into this, Terrence, that it's really weird that it's a good night for Georgia offensively. It's a good night for JT Daniels. I just saw Bob and Ashley Tharp, our friends from Meriwether and Tharp, and they're thrilled about what JT Daniels did tonight. A lot of folks excited about that. But it does lead to the question that Steve asked in the Facebook comment section a moment ago: what took so long to get here? And why didn't we see JT Daniels as the quarterback against Florida? Or maybe some people may even say even sooner than that. And listen, all we can do is take Kirby Smart at his word for this. And we'll hear some of Smart's own words from the press conference on this coming up a little bit. In fact, I believe JT Daniels himself is even going to give some words to the media. So we'll hear what Daniels himself has to say about all of this. But this is a day in which, as happy as people are about the way that JT Daniels play, there is a little bit of a loss of confidence in Smart's explanation from what we haven't seen Daniels before now, and the decision-making process that led him to be on the bench as long as he has been. Unless Smart gives a very clear, easily understood answer tonight, I think there are a lot of Georgia fans who are going to look at the good night tonight from JT Daniels and say, why are we just now getting a chance to see this? Is that fair or is that unfair in your mind?
It's going to be fair. It's a fair question that people are going to want a clear answer, not just the political answer that he may have given. But, I mean, go out and throw for 401 yards. And now fans really think why he wasn't playing early. So I'm interested to see what answer he gives tonight. I'm pretty sure it's not going to be an answer that people are going to be satisfied with, but it's going to be an answer now he has this guy. And he's going to continue to play, hopefully continue to play as well as he did tonight. And I know it's not going to make up for not playing him, especially against Florida, just putting him in there, see what he can do. Who knows? I don't know. Haven't had any inside intel of why he haven't played, but I wish he would have got an opportunity earlier.
And to be clear, I'm not saying that I know for sure that Daniels should have started that game or should have started any game before now. That's not what I'm saying. What I'm saying is the answers thus far that Kirby Smart has been giving on this are so unclear. They're so, in some cases, contradictory that all of us are left to just be confused by this. And nobody likes to be confused, especially around something like college football that's supposed to be entertainment, that's supposed to be fun, when you're left to try to, dissect sentences and try to decide what the meaning of certain words are. That just becomes more frustrating than certain people want it to be. And Smart's the coach, and I realize that from his perspective, he would assume that no one understands his reasoning on stuff anyway, so why be more forthright than you have to? But there comes a certain point in time, though, where the frustration that fans have about that is actually turned in the direction of Kirby Smart. And we're already seeing some of this, a little bit of criticism of Smart in the comment section for no other reason other than the fact that Smart has chosen to maybe just not be quite as articulate as he could have been about why it is we haven't seen Daniels before now.
Right. I think, for me, I just take it as I'm the head coach and I can make the decision. That's a clear-cut answer on why he haven't played, because it's still puzzling to why he haven't played right now. Has he still been hurt? Has he been healthy? He's been cleared for weeks. We don't know, but we saw his performance tonight, and now we're gonna ask and wonder why JT Daniels hasn't played before now.
It's our Dog Nation post-game show. We're presented by the UGA Bookstore. Good to have all of you with us tonight, whether you're watching on Facebook or YouTube or doing like our friends Bob and Ashley did, stop by to see us here at the UGA Bookstore a moment ago. Just really, really glad to have all of you with us here this evening. I did a big run of Facebook comments a moment ago. We'll run through and get some YouTube comments right now. There's still plenty more to get to from today's show, but let's keep your comments going here for a moment. Anthony Martin says JT had a nasty injury. Coach Smart didn't want him to get hurt again, and that very well may be true. Terrence, there's a really good chance that all of this was injury related, and it's at least possible that injury is just now cleared up enough for him to be able to play. But when Smart took to the podium before the Auburn game, announced that Daniels was cleared to play, but gave no more context beyond that, then you're only inviting the kind of confusion there's been. And frankly, while Stetson Bennett had, lots of moments that left something to be desired, some of the criticism they took this season, I think, was a little bit unfair. And the lack of information that Georgia fans had about why Daniels wasn't playing caused them to turn their ire a little bit more on Stetson Bennett than I probably thought was fair. And I think that Smart has to look himself in the mirror for why Bennett's been dragged through the mud by so many Georgia fans over the course of the last couple of weeks, because they have assumed that Smart was simply choosing to play Bennett over Daniels.
Right. So I think, and people gave Stetson a hard time. I think Bennett played as well as he could. But I think Stetson played what his talent level is. And JT came out and showed today that I think experience matters. I think once he settled down, especially like in the second quarter, you showed his experience that he's played college football. And one play particularly showed me that JT Daniel is cleared. Is when he escaped the pocket on a guy who blitzed. We didn't pick up the blitz. He made that guy miss, made the defensive end miss, and threw a pass to George Pickens. I think that's the one George dropped. That clearly shows to me that he's healthy and he has no issues with his knee.
Yeah, that's a great point. Somebody on our YouTube comment section brought that up kind of too, that on that particular drive, now that drive ends with the Kearis Jackson touchdown that ultimately was the game winner, but you had the Pickens drop when Daniels had shown incredible mobility. I think you're absolutely right about that. For a guy that's not really known for his mobility, and he's not as athletic as some of the other quarterbacks in college football. I'm not going to oversell this, but he showed plenty of athleticism to at least be elusive. You don't have to be, what Joe Burrow was for LSU last year, a true threat to run. Just be elusive enough to keep the play alive in the pocket. In that particular case, Daniels did that. But what one of our commenters said, I was trying to find the name so I could give him credit, that on that drive, Daniels really threw 3 touchdown passes in the same drive.
Right.
Pickens had a drop, and I don't think he had a single drop all year last year. So it's very unusual for him to have a drop. Jackson had a drop on the first down play, which is also a little bit unusual for him. Then he comes back and catches it wide open on third down. So this is Georgia, what ultimately turned out to be the game-winning touchdown. And really there were 2 other plays that preceding on that same drive that could have also themselves have been the game-winning touchdown.
Correct. We did drop. We killed ourselves on the drive, and luckily we did go and score. Kearis had the first drop. George had the second drop, and on a good completion, we had a holding call on that same drive. So we had 3 unforced penalties on that drive that could have killed us, but JT stayed in there and threw a strike to Kearis Jackson for the touchdown. That just shows that, and it was a zero blitz, and anybody knows what zero blitz is. That's an all-out blitz, one-on-one coverage. He stayed in the pocket and threw a strike to Kearis. So that just lets me know that he was locked in, especially in that third and fourth quarter. He was locked in, and all the jitters that I think he had in the first quarter was gone.
So how about a couple quotes here from JT Daniels, who did speak to reporters a couple of minutes ago. Terrence, you're going to love this one. JT Daniels was asked about throwing deep to wide receivers tonight. He says, if you're not going to throw to them, don't recruit them. That's exactly right? If you're going to go bring in a 5-star George Pickens, if you're going to bring in, and we'll get to Jermaine Burton in a moment, but if you're going to bring in an elite player for the class of 2020 like Jermaine Burton, if you're going to bring him in, by all means, use them, because the only program that's capable of using those players is Georgia, because Georgia's the guy who's got that talent. So you got to be able to use them. And tonight, JT Daniels did that. And I love the candor from him there with that line of, hey, if you're going to recruit the big time receivers, you got to use them once you get them. And I love that from him.
Right. You go out there, you have the guys. I think everyone last week I was all on Twitter just defending the receivers because I think we have a great group of receivers. And once Dominique Blaylock comes back next year, we're going to have 4 really good receivers plus the receivers that we got coming in. So, like you said, we have the talent. Everyone talking about why our receivers are not like Bama's and Florida's. We have those guys. We just got to have an offense that's tailored to getting explosive plays, and we saw that explosiveness tonight.
And that's why I think the games, the one tonight, the ones that come up before the season's done, that's why I think they really matter because, Terrence, you're right that if you look at the last couple of years, the overall level of Georgia wide receiver recruiting has gone up dramatically from where it was in the first couple of years under Smart and really about the decade prior to that. Georgia had just not been probably pulling as much of the elite talent as maybe it could have. And yet the problem you've had the last couple of years is, okay, you've got big time players or at least big time prospects, but they've been young, they've been inexperienced. Terrence, what Georgia has a chance to have in place for itself next season is an example of a guy like Burton, who all of a sudden has gotten a lot of experience. A guy like Pickens, who will be in his junior season and really ready to blossom. There are a lot of the stat folks around college football that'll tell you, like the analytics types, that experience at the receiver position matters just as much as experience at the quarterback position does. That it's one of the most predictive stats you can have for winning is how experienced your receiving core is. And so when Daniels is spreading the ball around the way that he is tonight, this is all big time investments in the future for Georgia. Burton getting a chance to go out and make big plays. Pickens getting a chance to be more involved in the offense than he's been at any point in time since last year's Sugar Bowl. These are guys that are getting that valuable experience, that continuity with what you hope is a JT Daniels, maybe even extending into the 2021 season. This all really matters. It may feel like a little too late in terms of competing for this year's championships, and I understand that, but it's not a hollow thing to get receivers ready to play in the future.
Correct. I think now we want to win the games, and I don't want to call this now a development time for some of the young guys because we want to go out and continue to win these games. But now you got to see what you got in some of the young guys, see if they're going to be ready for this big time football. And for us, the receivers, I think we have that group. We have all of those guys coming back. We have Kearis Jackson. We have Blaylock in the slot. We have Jermaine Burton. We will have Justin Robinson coming back next year. So we have a group of guys out there with the talent to compete on a high level and have the talent to do the things that the Floridas and Alabamas are doing right now.
All right, let me give you a few more quotes. This is from JT Daniels on the notion of being ready to play. He says, I wasn't cleared for Arkansas. From then on, it was a coach's decision, essentially putting that at the feet of Smart. He goes on to say that I felt like after the Arkansas game, I was ready to go and play football, which lines up with the 24/7 Sports report from a couple of weeks ago when someone close to Daniels had said something essentially the same thing as that. Daniels says that I will say that I've progressed a long way since then. We've still been working on, getting the strength back. So when Daniels first arrived here, I said at the time, I thought it was more of a 2021 thing for Georgia. And as it turns out, maybe Georgia needed him more in 2020, but just because you need him doesn't mean that you're able to get him. Maybe it is as simple as injury, but Smart kind of complicates this a little bit, Terrence, with his line, and I'm going to read this to you straight from this press conference a moment ago, that in terms of evaluating Daniels, Smart says the sample size we had early on was small. His mobility wasn't great in fall camp. We thought a mobile quarterback would help, and that changed in the Arkansas game. So it is interesting when you hear part of what Daniel says there and also a portion of what Smart says, that a lot of what has kept Daniels on the bench was a coach's decision. Now, maybe it wasn't a coach's evaluation of how healthy he was, but some of that, just to be frank, is not going to sit well with everyone who's watching us right now.
It's not. The way he played tonight is going to just people ask more questions of why he hasn't been able to play. And that comment to me says from Coach Smart is one, a mobile quarterback. He's seemed like he's trending in the fact that he wants a quarterback that whoever can move the chains with their legs. And that's probably why he went with DeJuan Mathis. But in this case right now, the best quarterback right now, from what we've seen, we are not there to see practice every day. We're not in the film rooms, but just from what we can see on Saturdays, JT looks the best out of the quarterbacks that have played so far.
Easy Brown and the subject of Georgia not running the ball on a 6-man box. I mean, clearly Georgia chose to throw over top tonight of a defense that had seen Georgia, had known they want to come here and try to stop the run. That's exactly what they attempted to do tonight. It's our Dog Nation post-game show. We're live here at the UGA bookstore. By the way, when you're in Athens 7 days a week, they're open for you. All the great stuff, whether it's the Nike coaches gear. In fact, look what I'm wearing tonight. Let me see if I can bring the camera down here a little bit. This is kind of a nice little pullover thing that this is from the UGA bookstore. You know about comfortable on a night where it's not super cold, but there's like a little bit of a breeze, probably low 50s right now. A little bit of a pullover, a little quarter zip pullover with a hood. This is exactly what you need on a night like this. This is from the UGA bookstore. So there's all kinds of great. Let's see if I can get myself back positioned up again here. Normally in the old days, prior to the coronavirus, we have 1,000 people helping us do a show. Now in the UGA bookstore, it's pretty much just me. But nonetheless, we're having a great time. And great apparel down there on the first floor. If you can't get here to see it at the UGA bookstore, you can shop anytime you want, 7 days a week, 24 hours a day online, UGAbookstore.com. Make sure you check that out. All right, Terrence, I know you're a humble guy. You don't like bragging on yourself, so I'm gonna put you on the spot here just for a moment. I mean, to be honest, Jermaine Burton is a guy that you have been close with. I mean, when Burton initially announced his college decision, he did it on your birthday. So, I mean, this is a guy that has a lot of respect for you, has worked closely with you, and he came within a couple yards tonight of setting the individual single game receiving mark for Georgia. It was a breakout performance for Jermaine Burton in every way imaginable, and this is a guy that you spent a lot of time working with. So what did it feel like for you to see Burton, who has had some moments already this season, but what did it feel like for you to see Burton have such a moment under the lights of Sanford Stadium, really showing the promise of what he has a chance to be?
One thing that I'm happy about is I get to see the progress each week. I think from the first game against Arkansas to now, he's a totally different player, not skill wise, just the maturity of college football. And he's gotten better each week. He's not thinking as much as he was the first game. The game is slowing down for him. Now he could be the best version of Jermaine Burton he could be. That's this explosive athlete that I've known since he was in the 7th grade, and he was on display tonight. And he showed the world tonight of the reason why I've been so high on him, why I've bragged on him so much, and why I've said that he can be the second best receiver on Georgia's roster once he walked on the campus, because he has the elite talent for the hands, and he's very explosive. And once he continued to learn this game and understand what the offense is, understand what the defense is trying to do to him to take him away, understand read defenses, the sky's the limit for the kid. And when having a group like Pickens, Jermaine Burton, Blaylock, and Kieras, that is a great group of receivers.
Yeah, listen, I think that you and I are so different on this because you have studied the receiver position your entire life. You're teaching and coaching that position now. You're looking at so many things that I'm not really looking at. You're looking at the crispness of routes. You're looking at, just a lot of decisions that a player makes during the game. For me, when I look at a receiver, the main thing I'm looking for is, does that guy give me that wow factor? Does he give me that off the charts athleticism? Because that's the kind of thing that I think you have to have in the biggest and toughest battles of the SEC. And Terrence, Jermaine has always shown some of that. Tonight, I think he showed it even more because it was an offense that was really tailored to his skill set well. But this is a guy who runs. He's got the vertical leap. There are some off the charts athletes who've done big things in the SEC the last couple of years. Burton tonight was a reminder. He knocked on the door. I mean, I think that he finally finished with 4th most receiving yards anyone's ever had in a game at UGA. I think he's number 4 on that list after what he did tonight. But he shows you the athleticism that gives you a chance to kind of put him in the same category of these programs, the Alabamas, the LSUs, who've been winning a bunch of games and putting a bunch of guys in the first round at the receiver position. I mean, Burton showed you tonight that he can absolutely be in that category, and to think that you've got him alongside of George Pickens makes it really fun. And to keep that pipeline going in future years, as JT said in his press conference, use these big recruits, and you'll find that other big recruits want to follow in their footsteps and come join them there. It was an exciting night for me to see Burton getting a chance to do the things that he was doing.
It was a exciting night for me too, and And I don't know if I said on Facebook or somebody in a group chat, I felt like a proud papa tonight, just being
Mhm.
able to watch him go out and do the things that I've seen him do since he was in the seventh grade. I mean, I tell this story all the time. After the second training session that I had with him in the seventh grade, I told his mom that she got something special just for being able to high point the football, just to track the football as a seventh grader. It was crazy. I mean, his hand eye, his body control is just off the chart. AJ Greenish body control. So I mean, I've seen all these things. I was just waiting on this game for him to show the world what he could do. And I knew it was going to take a little time. I knew it was going to take a few games, but I knew it was coming. And now he just got to continue to get better each week. He can't be happy with this right now. He can't be like, I've arrived. He got to continue to keep his head down and continue to grind and continue to get better and understand his game. And the sky's the limit. I mean, he could go as far as he want to go.
I interview a lot of recruits. I never interviewed Jermaine Burton, so I really don't know a lot about his personality. I obviously know what his athletic personality is, what his playing style is, and it's very impressive. But his actual off-field demeanor, his personality, I really don't know a lot about him. For those of us who haven't had a chance to speak with him before, haven't had a chance to hear from him, what can you tell us about Burton as a person?
He's a very self-confident young man with a um, great attitude about life. He's has an older sister that he loves dearly, and the mom is those two. And he's a great young man. Yes, sir. No, sir. But he's an outgoing young man. He's 18-year-old that's like to have fun just like everybody. And he's one thing that his mom texted me this week. He's doing very well in school, and that's one of my things that
That's
I
good.
stay up on him about. Is it's a different times right now. I know a lot of his class is virtual, so it's easy to slip. So I continue to stay on him. His mom to stay on about just doing well in school, and he's doing well in school, and it's showing on the field.
Somebody brings up in the comment section about the fact that these receivers benefit. I'm on the YouTube comment section. Somebody brings this up that and Mr. Farrell says Burton is legit. You better believe that's true. But somebody also brings up the idea of how these guys benefit from quarterback play. If you are a Burton or if you are a Pickens or if you are D-Rob getting involved in Ike Harris Jackson, Terrence, I'm imagining the morale of that position group has to be pretty high because they're going to let them play no matter who the quarterback is. But when someone really shows an ability to deliver the football to you, these guys want to catch balls. They want to be a part of the offense. They want to get a chance to shine. And when Daniels delivers the ball tonight the way that he did, you've got to think that morale for that wide receiver group has got to be really high right now.
You got to. I mean, you go down and look at the stats. I mean, everyone is having fun tonight with Jermaine 8 for 197, George 8 for 87, Kiera's 4 for 55. I mean, D-Rock come in cold off the bench 3 for 45. So that is spreading the ball around, and everyone is happy, especially now being able to show your talents and what they win. So I mean, when you out spreading the ball like that, we got 28 completions. So that's a lot of touches by a lot of people for 400 yards and 4 touchdowns, and you come out with a victory. It's going to be a great night because all the receivers are happy.
RN says, where was JT against UF? Yeah, I mean, we've read you some quotes tonight of what JT Daniels had to say about that. He clearly admits that he has been wanting to play and that he felt like he has been healthy enough to play since the Arkansas game. Kirby Smart offers an explanation tonight for why that is, talking about the relatively small sample size they've seen during practice. I mean, Terrence, here's the one, and I don't want to like nitpick this stuff to death, but here's what's frustrating. So in the past, we've been told that the guy who plays in every game is the guy who had the best week in practice. We've been told that by Kirby Smart a million times. But this season, we find out that's not actually really true. But and I do believe that Smart's explanation this year is the actual truth. But we've been told in the past that it's about whoever goes out and performs the best in practice. That's the guy that earns the starting job for that week. But Smart, candidly, this year has said that you really can't prepare multiple quarterbacks at the same time, that you're going to pick who your starter is going to be. You've got to give that guy the so-called number one reps and build a game plan around him, get ready to go out there and play. And so, I think for a lot of fans and, maybe, folks like, me who didn't play the game at the college level, I think there's going to be a little bit of a frustration of, was there enough time made at practice to truly evaluate what JT Daniels brought to the table? And given the fact that he'd been a starter before at the, Power 5 level at USC, the fact that he was a former 5-star recruit, should you have just assumed he was at least a little bit better than maybe what you had, given the fact that this is not a guy that just stumbled in off the street. He actually played before, even if it wasn't maybe a great season as a freshman at USC.
Right. So that's why it was so puzzling that I heard Coach Smart say that that not JT Stetson and DeJuan gave us the best chance to win. So that was kind of puzzling to me, knowing that this guy have had some success in college football. He has played some college football, and he came in, I think, probably as the number one ranked quarterback coming out in his class. So the guy has talent. He has talent. So it's kind of puzzling. But tonight, I think he kind of put that to rest. Now, JT has to go out, get back to work next week, and put on another performance next week.
Coffin on YouTube says things get sideways for Kirby when it comes to quarterbacks. And listen, Terrence, you and I have spent enough time around each other. You know this. I think that Kirby Smart's a great coach, and I think that he's built a terrific program here at UGA. But that doesn't mean he's infallible. That doesn't mean he's, a perfect genius who does no wrong. And debating some of his decision making when it comes to quarterback position, I think that is fair. And fans expecting sensible decisions at that spot, I think that makes a lot of sense. So for the fans tonight, we're getting a lot of them who are asking those questions. I think that's all fair. And Terrence, maybe this is all just an example, as it looks like the Missouri game has gone final, maybe 17-10. Looks like Missouri's beating South Carolina tonight. Mike Bobo not earning a win as interim coach there for the Gamecocks and really struggling offensively in doing so. But the point here is that maybe this is all inexperience from Smart as a head coach. He's only in year 5 as a head coach. Maybe these are the early growing pains that everyone goes through. Smart happens to be going through this at a high profile spot at his alma mater as UGA coach. The expectations are so high, national championship robust really in every single season. Maybe Smart's handling of quarterback is about him feeling his way out here and figuring out how to be a head coach where the decisions you make are all very high stakes. Maybe that's some of what we're seeing from him right now is on the job training, learning how to handle quarterbacks as a guy who is still relatively young and inexperienced as a head coach.
Right. As a defensive guy, he's probably look at it from the defensive lens. He's never probably been an offensive guy besides in high school, but his track record, his resume, what he did was defense. So he's looking at a different lens than probably a lot of people. So I think we have had the talent at quarterback. It's not the lack of talent at the quarterback position. He's been able to recruit some of the top guys to come play. I mean, Jacob Eason, Jake Fromm, Justin Fields, Brock Vandegrift. So he has been able to get the guys in. That's just about developing these guys. We have to develop. I think Jake first 2 years was pretty good. In his last year, he kind of regressed a little bit. So we got to find that right mix of coaching, quarterback coach, OC to develop these guys. That's what these other programs are doing with their quarterbacks.
All right, let me read a couple more comments here. Kirby Smart praising JT Daniels for handling things in a world where people don't handle things well when they don't get what they want. So essentially acknowledging the fact that Daniels wanted to play and wasn't, and Smart says he handled it well. But then listen to this quote right here. This is from Kirby Smart a moment ago. Of course, it's great to have all of you with us here on our Dog Nation post-game show presented by the UGA Bookstore. Kirby says, I think people should understand I've been coaching for 20 years. Maybe the question should be, man, aren't you glad we got JT here? The decisions we made were based on what gives us the best chance to win. Terrence, I got to be honest about something for a second. If Kirby Smart wants to maintain a confident front while talking to reporters or, what he projects to fans, that's fine. But if privately, if he's not willing to acknowledge that he has made an awful blunder by likely keeping Daniels on the bench as long as he has, he either didn't do due diligence on his evaluation, made a misevaluation, or frankly, probably just let his ego get the best of him. If he's not willing to privately admit that, then Terrence, I don't really know what to say here. As I said before, it feels like an opportunity where Smart may just be letting the ego get the best of him if he's not. It's one thing not to say it publicly. I understand why he wouldn't. But privately, he better be talking to somebody about how do we make sure we never make this mistake ever again? Because in hindsight, it obviously pretty clearly seems to be a mistake.
Right. So my question is offensively, especially the offensive staff, if JT, and I think JT is the best quarterback we have on our roster right now. We're not there just talent wise. I think JT is the best. So offensively, are the offensive staff asking Coach Smart can we have JT, and he's declining that request, or is it a collective effort from the whole staff to say JT didn't give us the best chance these first few games? That's a question that I would like to know. Where's the decision coming from? Is it the offensive staff decision, or is it just a Coach Smart decision?
Well, I'll add to that, Terrence. I thought it was very interesting this morning on College Game Day. You know, Reese Davis, the host, he reports on the show that Daniels is going to start for Georgia tonight. By that point in time, pretty much everybody had known that. Multiple outlets had reported that. And he goes on to say, this is Davis, the ESPN Game Day host, that sources close to Georgia had told him that Daniels had not been really all that impressive during practice. Now, for a guy like Davis, who's a respected ESPN Game Day host, for him to say that on television this morning, he had to have that from somebody other than just the janitor, right? I mean, he's got to have that from somebody who's got, you know, a little bit of know-how about what's going on with the program. You know, it certainly seems like somebody somewhere wanted these expectations for Daniels tonight to be as low as they possibly could be, maybe as a way of, I mean, I'm just left to assume here, saving face for what has a, you know, the potential of looking like a very weird decision. As it turns out, it's as weird as it possibly could be with Daniels lining up the way that he did tonight. And by the way, people can say it was only a 2-win Mississippi State team, but Terrence, Bulldogs have been pretty good defensively. They came into the game tonight second in the SEC in passing yards allowed. So for all the reasons why Mississippi State only won twice before this game, you really can't blame the defense for that. They were third in the SEC in yards per play allowed. So this is a pretty good defensive team that Daniels beat up on this evening.
I think so. I think, and statistically, it speaks volumes that they are very good. And I think they played good. I think the defense coordinator made one mistake all night. That's going cover zero on a third and long, and Kier's scoring on the touchdown. I would have played coverage on that play, but he dialed up. The running game was non-existent tonight. And, you know, I thought they played well. And, yes, people are going to say just a 2-win Mississippi State team, but it's still an SEC opponent. This is not some HBCU or it's not. It's a Power 5 school. So you got to give credit where credit's due. It's hard to go and throw for 400 yards in any game.
Let me bring in Francisco Hurtado's comment on Facebook here, who said, does this hurt Georgia now with other elite running backs? The fact that, you know, the running game is kind of stymied tonight. There have been a couple of games this year where maybe Georgia hasn't gotten everything it'd like to get on the ground. And my answer to that to Francisco and anybody else is, no, I don't believe so. Terrence, here's what my prediction is. I think that if Georgia continues to throw the ball the way that it did tonight, it's actually going to open things up for the running game. Now, tonight, the success in the passing game didn't automatically lead to more success running the ball. But I think for Mississippi State, they were just hesitant to make the defensive changes that they came into the game with, because maybe they didn't fully trust, you know, JT Daniels' ability to kind of keep beating them over and over again. But we're in a day and age now, Terrence, I firmly believe this, where it's not running game to set up the pass. It's now passing attack to set up the run. So you let JT Daniels come out next week against South Carolina and throw the ball more the way that he did tonight against Mississippi State, all of a sudden the running game is going to follow suit on that. And if you don't have that passing attack in 2020, you're not going to have a running game either.
Right. I think both complements each other. Now in today's college football, the run game, the pass game set up the run game. Tonight, Mississippi State said, you're going to have to beat us throwing. You coming in with a quarterback who haven't started in the 4 year, who haven't played in the 4 year. So probably the strength of our offense was being able to run. So they're going to take one thing away. Going into a game, you got to take something away. You can't try to take two things away, or you'll never accomplish either. So they came in saying that we're going to make you throw the football. We don't believe you could beat us throwing the football. So they stacked the box, and you saw that we went up top on them. So that's going to help. Boy, not going to have to be able to block a 7-8 man box where you could block a 5-on-5 box. That's going to help tremendously down the road.
Let me give you another one here from Kirby Smart. A moment ago, he's asked about what he thinks about people questioning his decision not to play Daniels before tonight. The quote from Smart here, Terrence, is, people should take into account that I've been coaching 20 to 25 years. Every decision we make is what we believe puts us in the best position to win. I mean, that's, people are just not going to buy that, Terrence. What they're going to say in response to that, Kirby says, we make decisions that give us the best chance to win. The average fan looks at that and says, your decision was wrong. that's what you thought was going to give you the best chance to win, but it clearly didn't work because you got blown out. You got your brains beat in against both Florida and Alabama. So whatever you thought was giving you the best chance to win, you were just wrong about that. And so, that may have been, the best decision he thought he could have made at the time, but at least have some humility to say, and in retrospect, I was obviously and painfully wrong.
Right, you're right. He's going to go in. I think collectively as a staff, they're going to go in and discuss who gives us the best chance of winning. That doesn't mean that they're necessarily right or wrong, but that they're in the building every day. They get to watch the guys work and prepare, and that's who they felt. But clearly tonight, JT Daniels just looked like the better quarterback of the three that have played so far.
John Drinkard in our Facebook comment section, a little critical of Todd Monken here. Honestly, Terrence, I have been very happy with Monken thus far this season. And tonight, I think we saw not just JT Daniels throwing the ball well, but a Monken offense that's starting to come into its own a little bit more after he didn't have spring practice and all the things that you typically have to get ready for a season. Tonight, we saw, a Todd Monken offense, a little bit of what it might be capable of doing. And Terrence, I also think it's interesting, and you've been with us enough for these post-game shows now to know that, people always find something to criticize and complain about. And an offensive coordinator a lot of times is going to be the thing that people kind of criticize and complain about. But we really haven't heard a lot of slings and arrows in the direction of Todd Monken this year. I take that to mean if it's been kind of quiet on the fan front as far as criticism goes, I think that Monken's actually had a pretty good year. And in the story of what happens tonight, it's not just breakout for Jermaine Burton. It's not just happy to be returned to health for George Pickens. And it's not just JT Daniels either. This is the Todd Monken offense night they were running. I think that you have to give Monken, I believe, some of the credit for why Georgia, they only scored 31 points. It's not like they put, half 100 points up tonight. But for the breakout that did occur, I think you got to give Monken a good bit of credit for how you get there on that.
I think so. I've been very impressed and been very happy with the way he's called games. I've been happy with offensive scheme. Just tonight, only thing that I could be critical of him is why we continue to try to run inside when they kept bringing double-A blitz and bringing 7-8 men in the box, why we didn't try to attack the edge a little bit more. That's where the defense are weaker at in the scheme that Mississippi State was playing tonight. So that's the only thing that I've wondered. And we attacked the edge in the fourth quarter trying to do a 4-minute offense and run out the clock. And we had some successful runs. It wasn't any tackles for loss. So that's my only thing. I wonder why we didn't try to attack the edge more in the run game.
Yeah, I think that's probably fair. In a couple of minutes, we're going to give out our moment of the game, brought to you by our friends at Marco's Pizza. We'll do that here coming up in just a moment. We're live at the UGA Bookstore for our Dog Nation post-game show presented by the UGA Bookstore. It's our home away from home anytime we're in Athens. They've had a great day here today. You had Coach Vince Dooley, former Georgia quarterback David Green signing autographs here a little early. Folks even until a couple minutes ago were picking up those black jerseys and buying all those, and everybody having a good time with the Nike coaches gear, the Vineyard Vines, the Peter Millar, all of those famous apparel makers who make the good-looking UGA stuff. It's all right down there on the first floor at the UGA Bookstore. So when you're in Athens, stop by and see them. They're open 7 days a week. And if you can't get to Athens, well, make sure you shop online 365 days a year, 24 hours a day at UGAbookstore.com. Before we talk about our moment of the game, let me get another thought from you and the Georgia defense. They did have a little trouble against the air raid tonight. I thought you broke this down well a little early in the show, Terrence. Can we go back to this real quick before we wrap up here this evening? Just kind of where you thought Georgia went wrong in the early going, trying to match up with Will Rogers and this Maroon Bulldogs passing attack that really had not had a lot of success, last few weeks, but really found it in the early going. What did you see from Georgia that you would like to have seen different in the early stages of this game?
I think it was very vanilla in coverage tonight. I think we played a true freshman tonight, so we didn't mix up a lot of coverages. I would like to see us to go from a 3-man to a 4-man a little bit more often. Once we went to a 4-man, the speed rushes with Aziz and Adam Allison, the Johnson, we got the edge and we got pressure on the quarterback. He was very comfortable in the first half, just throwing the check downs all night. So I think our drops from our zone drops from our backers was a little too deep because they were just checking down 8 yards and turning up and just moving the chain. So I would love we mix it up a little bit from a 3-man rush to a 4-man rush, just to mix it up and give more pressure on the guy because he just stood back in the first half, just clean throwing check downs all night.
So I got a good JT Daniels quote I'm going to read to you here in just a moment. We'll do this in a moment. That's really good. But I think your evaluation here is spot on. And you mentioned Jermaine Johnson. Johnson does get another sack tonight. I think that gives him, is it 4 on the season?
Four.
I think, yeah,
Four.
that he has now. This is a guy he missed a couple games because of injury, but man, he's really come on. And Terrence, when you think about some of the most dynamic pass rushers, for Georgia, obviously, guys like Adam Anderson have great potential. And we saw some great things from Azeez Ojulari already this season. But Jermaine Johnson's really establishing himself. And listen, he put out a lot of videos during the coronavirus lockdown. He was intent on being a hard worker. But Johnson's really established himself as one of the top players in this defense. And I think that's really great to see.
I think so. I think last year, coming from JUCO, I didn't think he really understood what the SEC was all about. Very talented young man. But this offseason, I saw a lot of work that he put in, gained a lot of good muscle this past offseason. I think he got up to maybe 250 pounds, something like that, so he can set the edge and be a better pass rusher. So he's playing very well this year. I'm very proud to have him on the team.
So let me give you a little bit more context. One of the JT Daniels quotes I gave you earlier, he says, if you've got Jermaine Burton and George Pickens, don't recruit them if you're not going to throw it to them. If you give me one-on-one with them, I'm going to make sure you can stop it. Otherwise, I'm going to keep trying it to see if you can stop it before we try to do something else. And that's obviously great to hear. And, those deep throws, those deep strikes tonight from the Georgia offense was a really fun thing to be able to see, including what turned out to be the game winner tonight in the fourth quarter, 40-yard touchdown pass from JT Daniels to Kearis Jackson. That is our Marco's Pizza moment of the game. And for everybody getting ready to watch some football as you head towards Sunday and just kind of get together with some family and friends, of course, a lot of turkey as you head towards the week. Folks want to stay away from that kind of stuff in the weekend. So Marco's Pizza would be a good way to cleanse that palate to get ready for the turkey that's coming later on this week. Always pairs well with football. Great tasting pizza, America's most beloved pizza, real authentic pizza made the Italian way, and great savings as well, whether you're getting the specialty pizzas or the whatever else. It's baked in a 450-degree oven. It's touchless, it's contactless, delivered right there to you. You can find out more at the Marco's app or online at marcos.com. Congratulations to Kearis Jackson, 40-yard touchdown in the fourth quarter to 9. That is our Marco's Pizza moment of the game. All right, Terrence, let's do a couple of things before we get ready to wrap things up here today as well. We had some folks earlier asking about next week's game against South Carolina. So that is a night game for the Dogs next week, 7:30 p.m. against the Gamecocks. In fact, let's show you the remaining schedule for Georgia the rest of the way here. The two things that we do know, the two things that we don't know. We do know, obviously, next Saturday in Columbia against South Carolina, night game for the Dogs and the Gamecocks there at 7:30. It's back here at Sanford Stadium on December 5th for the final home game of the season against the Vanderbilt Commodores, and still awaiting news on what's going to happen between Georgia and Missouri for the game that was postponed last Saturday. Missouri's already got a game on December 12th, so that date not available here. There's obviously a really good chance that Georgia and Missouri could play on December the 19th, but there's also at least a slim possibility that Georgia could be in the SEC championship game if Florida were to go on a long losing streak here. So there's at least some possibility they may try to play that game on December the 12th somehow and then move Missouri's game against Vanderbilt to December the 19th. So a long way of saying this, Terrence. We know two of Georgia's remaining games this upcoming Saturday in South Carolina, back in Athens the week after that for Vanderbilt, and we're waiting to hear news on exactly how things are going to play out with Georgia and Missouri. So an unusual year, and we'll have some more strange things to talk about before the season's probably done.
Right. I'm just looking forward to this South Carolina game. People talking about tonight are talking about the Mississippi State game, and they're a 2-7 or 2-5 team. South Carolina defensively just lost their two cornerbacks, so we should be able to do this again next week against those guys. They do have a good defense line, good pass rush, but secondaries, right, they're depleted. There's a lot of stuff going on with us. So there's a game that we really need to go in and focus. What my head coach at Pace Academy, Chris Slade, says always a trap game in there somewhere. That could be a trap game next week if we go in and take South Carolina for granted. So we have to continue to improve and show that we can be the top echelon of the SEC.
Let me also hit a couple of the big headlines from the weekend outside. Georgia went against Mississippi State. Alabama put 63 points on Kentucky after having not played in a couple of weeks. Alabama came out in a bad mood today, really with ending any kind of discussion about who should be the number one ranked team in the country. Alabama obviously extended their gap over the rest of the country with how they handled a really not so bad Kentucky team, but absolutely completely outgunned today in a 63-3 final. Florida, little bit of trouble early with Vanderbilt, but they pulled away from that game against the Commodores there in the second half. Another big day, statistically speaking, for Kyle Trask. Ohio State remains undefeated, but the game against Indiana, a little closer than some folks thought. I don't know how much of Ohio State got a chance to see today, Terrence, but what'd you make of Buckeyes staying undefeated but getting a little bit of a threat from the Hoosiers today?
I did. I was able to watch some of that game today, and it was a very good game today. Justin Fields didn't play as well as he's normally playing, throwing 3 interceptions. But the biggest thing that didn't deter him from going out and helping his team get a win. It didn't rally him. But Indiana came out and played well today. I mean, they had a receiver with 7 catches for like 230 yards, 3 touchdowns. So Indiana showed that they're not a fluke. They're not a pushover, that their program is headed in the right direction. It's just not a basketball program no more. So it was a very good game. And for Justin Fields, I thought it was a testament to his greatness, because I think he is great, that he needed some adversity. He's haven't had any adversity right now in 2 years that he's been at Ohio State. So he showed that he could shake off those costly mistakes and lead his team to a victory.
The other headline to give you is really just a short time before the game was supposed to start, around 8:39 this morning, we found out that Clemson, Florida State was going to be either postponed or canceled, whichever word you want to use. Seems like there's some bad blood there in the ACC about exactly how this went down. Clemson does have a positive test, but they felt like they had followed protocols enough to play the game. Florida State disagreed. Plenty of people are going to say that maybe the Seminoles didn't want to play a game in which they were, 30-point underdogs. This one's a little bit controversial between Clemson and Florida State right now, it would seem.
I just would hate to think that those competitors, that prestige program, I know they haven't been good in a long time, but Florida State is still a team that I watched growing up. So it's hard for me to believe that they didn't want to play because it's Clemson. They have they have too many competitors over there. They want to compete. So if they just cancel the game because they felt they would get embarrassed, that I don't know where the Florida State program have went to now.
Francisco Hurtado also mentioning Northwestern pulls the upset tonight at home against Wisconsin. That's a lot of fun. In the SEC, Auburn pulls away from Tennessee. South Carolina, ugly loss in terms of what they played. No one really expected them, for the most part, expected them to win against Missouri. Arkansas loses on another bad call, series of bad calls against LSU. What else is new on that? Arkansas has been jobbed by the officials all year long. So that's kind of the state of college football here this weekend. Terrence, before we wrap up here tonight from the UGA bookstore, a final thought from you on what you saw from Georgia in a win, 31-24 against Mississippi State tonight.
I think this is the offense explosion that we've been looking for, that we thought that we could provide all year. Scoring 31 points is fresh breath air in my opinion. I think defensively we didn't play as well as we should have. I think Georgia got one offensive series in that first quarter because Mississippi State just checked us down all game, and the clock kept going. So we got to get back to work. I mean, South Carolina's not going to be a pushover. They got a good running game with Kevin Harris. Coach Bobo is going to come in and want to beat his alma mater, want to beat one of his best friends. And we know that they're depleted in the secondary, but they're going to come fired up because they beat us last year. So they're going to use that as a mantra this week. Is we beat them last year, we could beat them again. So I think the bulletin board material for Georgia this week was, we can be beat by this team because they beat us last week. So I don't think this team want to go out. These teams want to go out losing 2 games in a row to South Carolina.
I think it's really interesting as I wrap things up here. Georgia won tonight by only 7 points in a game they were favored by 25. In a normal situation, a lot of Georgia fans would be pretty upset about that, especially if it was a typical Georgia game where it was 17-10 or 21-17 or something along those lines. But tonight it was a little bit more in keeping with what college football has become in 2020. Points seemingly somewhat easier to come by for Georgia. Quarterback play, a big part of the story. Therefore, seems like a lot of fans a little bit more forgiving of what otherwise was a game that was a little bit closer than the experts said it was supposed to be. And I'm very curious to see where Georgia goes from here. This was a more exciting Georgia game than we've seen from the Dogs really in probably quite some time, especially some of the games at home as of late. Finding a way to build on that offensively will certainly be an interesting thing to watch. For all of you, we appreciate you being here, a part of our Dog Nation post-game show tonight, presented by the UGA Bookstore. Plenty of coverage of the game, including a huge performance by JT Daniels and Jermaine Burton and George Pickens and so many others. Kyrus Jackson, the game-winning touchdown. You can read all about that at dognation.com. I'll see you Monday morning for Dog Nation Daily. We'll talk more about that as well. Getting ready for the Gamecocks next Saturday. And Terrence, I'll look forward to speaking with you again Saturday night. Another late one from Columbia. We'll do some coffee and get our caffeine on and be ready to talk about the Dogs and the Gamecocks next week. Terrence, I look forward to seeing you then.
Thanks, BA. It's a better Saturday than the last time we was on air Saturday, so it's a great feeling. I can go to bed happy and ready to wake up tomorrow morning.
That is very true and certainly well said. All of you, thanks for being here. Thanks for stopping by and seeing us at the UGA Bookstore. See you next week for our Dog Nation post-game show presented by the UGA Bookstore. Enjoy the rest of your weekend, everybody.